Said we're not going to talk about reform, aren't you? So, speaking of bribery,
I'd rather keep politics out of such conversations. I don't think politics has no bearing on the property industry or the property market whatsoever.
Well, let's start with politics. Let's start with politics.
This
is what I'm here for.
Just a quick intro, because in case anybody in the industry is living under a rock, the proverbial rock, but we have 4 guests in the industry, titans of the industry. I've got Iain McKenzie here from the Guild, and we have Russell Quirk.
The AN is silent with his time.
What are you these days? A politician, a counsellor, a property PR?
Failed estate agent.
The second best property podcast co-host of the second best.
The premier property podcast.
Whatever.
Myself and my good friend Russell Jervis.
I would say women in estate agencies got the nod on you, mate. So anyway, talking about you estate agency and Yopa, the CEO of Yopa, got Verona here, Verona Frankish, and how did we?
Minister of many portfolios.
Token jester.
None of them making any money.
Token jester because
there must be a strategy behind that.
Oh, it is.
There's a big
four-dimensional chess.
It's a big plan.
They know I'm Loco Sensei.
So there's no Whaley whispers to share.
No, we'll do that at lunch.
Okay.
Didn't we talk the other day about what your strategy is? And it's to cover yourself in crazy glue, run into an exhibition of a property nature at the Excel or wherever, and bump up against things, and whatever sticks to you, you buy.
Okay.
Whatever he does, it's all a kerfuffle.
There you go.
Oh, wow, they've been working this out. I can either confirm or deny that, but it's a good thing. Yeah, I'll do that.
Well, listen, guys, thanks very much for joining us there. I know you're all busy
You were great
people.
this yet.
No, this is exactly what I was after. But let's start with the budget, because it was a successful budget by all counts.
Seriously?
Well, let's be honest.
Hang on. A successful budget by whose perception?
That was a joke. But it felt like the budget was just taking such a long time to actually finally arrive. There was clues going out there, little drops here, there and everywhere. More or less, it felt to me like things were grinding to a halt before the budget arrived. And I think that was a bit of a bad move on the side of the government. But anyway, what's been the single biggest impact of the recent budget on the housing market?
The fact that they announced it on the 29th of July, and then it was politics by consensus.
Okay, so negative impact.
Yeah. Well, they launched these. Is this a good idea? Then look on social media to see how many thumbs or likes they get, and if they get low, they change their mind.
In what country in the world outside of Britain would that happen?
Well, they're playing with the economy.
We used to have respect for politicians, and there is no respect.
Well, it also used to be the case if the budget leaked before the budget itself, and the Chancellor had their fingers on that in terms of their fingerprints, they would be dismissed immediately. It actually happened.
Yeah, but she was fuming that had been leaked. You could see she was.
No, but she'd been trailing what was going to be in the budget for weeks before, which then makes sure that the economy and the property market stalled.
It couldn't benefit her in any shape or form.
Flying kites.
Politics
they're
by
accountable.
consensus.
Ultimately, they're accountable. It shouldn't have happened. It did. They're accountable.
Yeah.
But it was just the OBR thing.
And that was the highlight.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that was the highlight. And now there's all the OBR news about when things were told to them about the performance of the UK economy, etc.
Yeah, and how factually correct it was
and
or
I
not.
still can't work out the motivation behind the stance of that, saying, actually, it's really shit.
Yeah.
Even though they knew it wasn't.
But it's not quite as shit as we said it was.
The motivation was to use a fictitious black hole to raise taxes, to spend money on ideological vanity projects like increasing welfare.
That's called governing.
Or can you now do the taking 450 kids out of poverty bit, because you're bound to say that at some point.
I mean, that's bad, isn't it? Isn't that in it all the time?
Well, no, I'm old-fashioned, Simon. I just think parents should be responsible for their kids,
you know
not
what?
the state.
What you shouldn't do is punish half a million children
with
for the sins of the parents.
$250 billion benefit bill every year. You think it's punishing?
Oh, so you want to go to the benefits bill?
No, I'd like to cut
the party that you voted for 14 years repeatedly trebled that national debt. The reason that she's
because
there,
of COVID.
and I know what you're going to say.
I'm not going to support the
how long? Well, you know, because you've dodged that again, haven't you? You're not taking any responsibility as usual. You back them every year.
No, I'm not taking responsibility. I wasn't in Parliament. I wasn't.
No, but you were backing them. You defended them in every
I haven't been a Conservative for years. But anyway, we're getting off the track.
You take out 80 billion on Brexit. You've got
just let them have another minute.
This is like Kimmy Badenoch retort to the budget, isn't it? Just
because I'm not being personal.
but we are in the. It was, and I think there was a big impact prior, and I think there will be a big impact for businesses. Post. I think
one sector that would definitely affect is landlords again. So landlords have been bashed time after time.
I was the last podcast I had. The two guys who run brokerages in London both said there's no good buy to let.
Yeah, I mean, like, you had Damien Jeffries on, right? Who will, I'm sure, will have spoken about the effect on prime London. Now, some people might not lament, wealth creators, having to
no, I think it's
be
terrible.
hounded out of Britain and pay more tax. But the prime market in this country, London, has been pretty much decimated by relentless attacks. But look, this budget not only focused on landlords in terms of the extra 2% on income tax across all tax bands, but it comes in the wake, of course, of not just the Renters' Rights Act, but also Section 24, capital gains tax being increased for landlords and so on. You would think that the government would actually have an iota of empathy and sympathy for landlords that are themselves filling a gap that successive governments have
That's the
left.
point. If they don't have empathy or sympathy, they are fulfilling a primary need because we don't have enough social housing.
And they're being punished.
So
We're
we're eroding that again. That's the problem.
But who gets punished really if you punish the private landlord sector?
Yeah, exactly.
Tenants.
The tenants.
Those tenants.
The tenants.
You've already seen rising rents in the last 2 or 3 years, which
Yeah.
is terrible when you've got a cost of living crisis, which I feel we're in still, and I think it's only going to get tougher for people.
Yeah.
I actually asked. I say the pleasure. I was in a room with not in a room, just on my own, with Kwasi Kwarteng and Jeremy Hunt last week. So that was quite interesting. I asked them both some questions. One of my questions to Kwasi was, has the middle class become the working class? Or is that really now going to shift those classes down one? And I suppose the welfare class are moving up one. Is that fair to say?
So I think that the middle class have always been a working class. I guess the point is
that working people.
But the point is, how do they get targeted ideologically? We could really disappear down a rabbit hole here. I'll tell you one thing that's definitely happened is that the Labour Party have turned from a party that were focused on ordinary working people, and now they're focused on the London elite that are the Labour Party. That's a huge shift, I think, in their focus. There were a couple of rays of sunshine, though, out of the budget.
Yeah,
which were? Venture. One was that gilt yields dropped. So the effect for property people is that as a consequence of that, fixed rate mortgages have now got cheaper. So that's a positive.
Yep.
The reason for that is because the city actually quite liked the budget. They quite liked it.
They love that headroom, don't they?
Well, yeah, they do. And they like the comfort of knowing that although we don't want to pay more tax, there's more tax going into the system to the tune of £26 billion. And as a consequence of that, the city can have some comfort that the economy in that respect is somewhat stable, in that there isn't any longer a deficit. So that was very, very positive, I thought. And I guess, counter to that, if the economy weakens, and we can talk about the OBR, which Ian's mentioned, all we like, but the OBR are not the most reliable of organisations, I have to say. But they have said that in the coming years, productivity and household income will drop, which means the economy will weaken. So GDP growth in the UK is forecast to be about 1.5% this year, which is pathetic.
Yeah.
Actually, if you have a weakening economy, the response is that the Bank of England reduce interest rates. So actually, out of, if I might say the word shit show, well, I think it's one word actually because it's got a hyphen, but anyway, out of the shit show that is the budget, for property owners and would-be buyers, it actually wasn't that bad.
Hang on a minute, though. I mean, it is 1.5% is nothing to get excited about, but from where we've been, and it is going to be the second highest in the G7 is what they're predicting. So for full transparency, well, it is,
France,
but it's
Germany,
where people
pretty much in
but
recession.
that's what it's about, isn't it? At the moment, everyone's going to be dragging each other down and everything else.
So it's all economies.
The only, by the way, Kwasi Kwarteng, I hope you just asked him to just apologise time after time, because that's all he needs to be doing on every interview for.
Kamikaze.
It's absolutely insane.
So he's still in a job then?
Well, I think he's probably making more money doing what he's doing talks. But anyway, coming back, if you were the Chancellor of Verona, what one housing policy would you put in place for 2026, which is going to energise the property market or the economy?
The most obvious one is stamp duty. Completely abolish it. The most obvious one. It is a blocker. It continues to be a blocker, but not only the cost to buyers, the fact that the government use it as a tool to either stimulate or destimulate the market. It completely messes with businesses, it messes with consumers, and it's just it's a mess.
It messes with people emotionally.
Yeah,
if you really go into the nuts and bolts with the pressure that's applied and the taken away.
Exactly.
So stamp duty, okay. Got any idea of what? So you would take it away?
Yeah, completely.
And then what will replace it is a better housing market, more.
I mean, what do they get from his 9-10 billion a year?
13.
Okay.
Big old.
But what we also have to understand is when the housing market is not flowing in the way it should do, it has a ripple effect on the economy, the wider economy. We know this. So by what we would lose in stamp duty, I have no question we'd multiply. Yeah.
Well, I was just talking to, like I said, guys in London, and the deal they were talking about where the stamp duty was 19% on a property. I think it was 20 million. And you're talking about, I think it's like 4 million or something in the region of just on stamp duty alone. And that's why that end of the market's been kicked in the
I think it goes far, it kind of goes as high as 20. So if you're above 1.5 million, you're a foreign buyer and it's not your primary home. I think it's 12 plus 5 plus 3, I think.
It was also saying
that's crazy.
It was £4,000 in the height, sort of per square foot. It's now like 1,700, 1,800 in those kind of areas.
I think the wider point is, forget, whether you're Simon's politics or my politics or whatever, you do want to show overseas buyers, investors, and potential, entrepreneurs that want to kind of make their life here that we're open for business.
Yes.
I'm not sure a 20% tax on purchase
it's not attractive.
is a good idea when it comes to...
What could you buy for 20 million alone elsewhere?
Yeah, so one of the richest men in the world, Mittal, who's got a property in Kensington Palace Gardens, worth whatever it's worth, 45, 50 billion quid, literally just left. And therefore, so is all his tax, his corporation tax, all the capital gains tax that he might have paid, all the income tax, and indeed all the people close to him. So his staff, his admin.
His wider expenditure.
The market
There is a
It's
meme.
not a good thing economically.
There's a meme going around this week, isn't there, that Rachel Reeves is being nominated for Estate Agent of the Year in Dubai.
Yeah. She's done more for Dubai property than Sheikh Mohammed. Yeah.
So what would be your, if you were Chancellor, Simon, what would be your policy that you would...
Well, apart from not taxing prop tech businesses.
You can choose that as your one.
You'd be all right then, wouldn't you?
Do you know what? I'm not sure. I mean, I think it's... I don't know. You have got to stimulate productivity. I mean, talking in the wider thing is, I can't think... We've always been the sick man of Europe, haven't we, on the productivity point? And I think somebody was talking about it, which is ironic because 20% of the fastest growing tech companies in Europe are all from the UK, but we don't have anything like that kind of Silicon Valley backing for that entrepreneurship that we definitely have there. Yeah. So much we could be doing by supporting, the Oxford, Cambridge, and everything else to really drive that. We don't give them enough support in the early days, do we? And then they sell out too early to these big American companies, and that's got to be an area we do have a fantastic, there is a brain drain to the UK in terms of people wanting to come here and do technology. And that's where, as we see, where are the AI startups that obviously the Chinese and the Americans are investing literally billions in there? I'm not sure as usual we're going to be able to benefit from that.